So for those of you who missed the initial discussion, Atomic Heart, we're going to go through like the game itself. We're going to go through the scandal associated with it. But basically Atomic Heart is the first game from a new studio that is comprised of a bunch of developers from Ubisoft, from I think they have people from CDPR who have worked there before. They've got a bunch of people from all over the world working on this, a bunch of industry veterans. And the inspiration is pretty clearly BioShock. They're taking a ton of inspiration from that, with you having this glove that you can perform all sorts of weird actions with. I don't even know what to call them. They're not magic. It's like telekinesis, stuff like that. And then it's a first-person shooter that's visually very, very interesting. It's got extremely high fidelity across the board, and it seems to be pretty interesting. You can see all in here. The gameplay looks solid. It's graphically really interesting. All sorts of different puzzles. The game is allegedly around 20 hours long for the main story. Probably another maybe 10 for side content from what I've heard rumored. And it seems pretty high fidelity. It seems like a pretty looking game. YouTube trying to cheap out and play at 480p. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. But it seems like a compelling game, right? It seems pretty interesting. What I will say is, like I said, there's been a handful of scandals tied up into this thing, which I guess is just common now. Every major release is probably going to be, called to be canceled for you to boycott and all of this. And my overarching position, let me say, I've not looked into any of the scandal yet. We're going to do that together here in just a minute. So I'm going to be seeing this for the first time with you guys. But my general policy recently, I'm not talking to you, Siri. My general policy has been that I am a game reviewer. I'm a game YouTuber, right? I will not pretend as though I am like qualified to discuss religion or moral topics, ethics, or anything. I might throw out like, hey, when this company scammed their customers out of this stuff when they released this game in a broken state, I'll mention that. Say, yeah, that's an ethical problem I have with them. But it's directly tied to the game itself. Like the game is broken. That's unethical to sell that to people. And I feel comfortable describing that stuff. But I generally feel uncomfortable describing and discussing ethical concerns and moral concerns. I'll give you the information on a scandal, but I will try not to speak out of my place, right? Like it's not my role.
Ninja Lantern donated
if that makes sense.
£5 through Super Chat. I can't wait for this game. Really hoping it releases without performance issues or game-breaking bugs. Also, Robo Ballerinas. Need I say more smiling face?
Well, thank you for the $5 or £5 Ninja Lantern. Appreciate you. And yeah, we'll see. I haven't heard anything about that, but we shall find out how it runs soon enough. But yeah, I mean, all of it's just to say, I have generally been very frustrated when various YouTubers and influencers try to lecture you on what you should and shouldn't do for ethical reasons. Meanwhile, like they're taking gambling sponsorships and all sorts of stuff. So I just feel like it's not my place to lecture you on what's right or wrong. I can give you the information tied to a given scandal, like with Hogwarts Legacy. I can, in this case, I don't think there was any need to tell you about the J.K. Rowling stuff. Everybody knew about it. So your mind was going to be made up whether I lectured you on my opinion on it or not, right? So it's just not my role, as far as I'm concerned, to lecture you on what you should or shouldn't do, but I'm happy to give you the information so you could make an informed decision, if that makes sense. That's generally my approach to these things, okay? I will try to respect your autonomy in making informed decisions yourself. So that's where I'm going, entering into this discussion of the scandal tied to this game, okay? So that's where I'm at with this. Now, all of this scandal stuff started with this video like a week and a half ago, went semi-viral and did very, very well. And it's from Harenko. I'm not familiar with this creator, but it seems like a smaller channel. So this is probably like one of the first videos they had really, really pop off. So props. So I've not seen this, but I'm down to hear them out and see what they are saying and why they argue you should not buy Atomic Heart. So we will check this out.
Today is August 9th, 1945. The US drops 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, turning the cities to dust and ending the lives of more than 200,000 people, shortly after which Japan surrenders. In celebration, the US government creates and publishes a tabletop board game called Nuclear Love, themed according to the operation performed. It was made for 2 players, where one would be playing on the side of the US and the other would be playing as Japan. The game features dice that look like miniature atomic bombs, and the person who manages to bomb the other's city capital first wins. By rules of the game, however, the US side would always have the first turn, which brought natural advantage, and the board game, despite the patriotism and popularity, failed on the market.
I mean, I think we'd all agree that it's probably in bad taste. Sure, like it's horrible that all those people died. It's also like it's war. So like, yeah, horrible things happen in war, and we make games based on war. But okay, yeah, I mean, I would find it in bad taste. I would agree.
Sounds like a rather unethical piece of military propaganda that nullifies the tragedies, right?
I wouldn't. Ethical is I don't know about ethical. Unethical. I don't know. That gets tricky for me. Because, like, are you going to say this while playing Call of Duty as well? Like, it might be nullifying the tragedy. I would agree it's insensitive, and I think that it's in bad taste. But I don't think you're unethical if you were to play that game. I don't know.
That's because Nuclear Love never existed, and I just made it up. But there is a similar situation that does exist that follows this formula, and it is about to be released, and its name is Atomic Heart. I want to preface the video.
Okay, so the game doesn't exist. Okay. So this is already, I mean, I would say that this, I'll hear him out, but I'd be concerned because it already seems like he's opening his video by constructing a straw man. Which is not a great way to make your argument when you're beginning with logical fallacies out the gate. Because it seems like he's constructing something that's easier to attack for emotional reasons, and he's trying to pin that down and then get you to side with him that this is really unethical, right? Well, this game's also unethical, so if you think that first example is unethical, then you have to think this one's unethical. But it's like, it's a false equivalency. It's not actually... For one, I don't really agree that it's unethical to play that game he described that doesn't actually exist. And I'll hear him out. I'll see if this is like a 1-to-1. I don't know.
By saying that if you're the type of person that is still going to buy and play something like Hogwarts Legacy despite its infamy, you might as well click off, as I'm going to explain why it's a bad idea to purchase and play Atomic Heart. Go on, you have a Joe Rogan podcast to catch up on, or...
Okay, I'm sorry. This, you know what? It's kind of funny to be like, let's be real. It's kind of funny to be like, if you're going to play this game, whether you think it's unethical or not, then go watch that Joe Rogan episode you have queued up and listen. Maybe you catch up on reading your Jordan Peterson book. Like, I get it. Like, it's kind of funny. I'll give him that. It's a little funny, but also, like, you aren't going to win people over by opening and openly criticizing and like making fun of people who you're trying to convince. Like, people, if you just want to preach to the choir, then what's the point of the video, right? Like, if you're starting your video with, if you disagree with my thesis, get out. That's not how you win people over. The way you win people over is like, you might disagree with my thesis here, which is that you shouldn't buy Atomic Heart for ethical reasons. But if you disagree with that premise or thesis, let me convince you. Stay, hear me out. And if you still disagree, I'll respect it. But hear me out. But to open it with, So, you don't agree with me at the start. Get out of here. It's not going to win anybody over.
or play Call of Duty or something. I don't know. Off you go.
Off you go. Oh, dude, I don't like the tone. I don't like the tone, man. I'm sure a lot of people don't like my tone when I talk about stuff, but the like snide, sniveling, like condescending, go like a little baby, like, or a toddler, go play in the rocks. Go ahead, get out of here. This is the adults are talking.
Ukrainian myself, I'm making this video to spread awareness, so even if 100 people see this, I'm satisfied. Even if one person cancels their pre-order because of this video, I'm satisfied. I will be turning monetization on for this video if possible, and all revenue from this video will be going straight to local Ukrainian charities.
I think that's awesome. I think that's great. This video probably, what was it, 1.7? Yeah, 1.7. In my experience, about every, depends on the time of year, but roughly every million views is probably around $4,000 to $5,000. So this thing's probably made like 6, 7, 8 grand, which is awesome. Yeah, fundraise for Ukrainian charities working for the peace effort. I think that's great. Yeah.
But let's start with the basics. What is Atomic Heart? Atomic Heart is a video game set to be released on February 21st, 2023 that is positioned by the developers as BioShock in the USSR. It describes the events of the alternative history of the 50s, where the Soviet Union emerged from the Second World War scientifically and technologically advanced, reaching the peak of development with cold nuclear fusion and intelligent robots. You play as Mayor Nechayev, who is a KGB major and an officer in special assignments. So far, the game has been universally appraised, earning top spots in oncoming games lists on sites like PC Gamer, IGN, and Gamescom. But let's see who is really behind it. The game is developed by a Russian studio called Montfish. On the website of the studio, there is currently no mention of the fact that this is a Russian game dev.
The first thing I want to be clear with, I don't want to buy into like the McCarthyite attitude of you're Russian, therefore you're bad. Like a lot of the stuff I've seen with regards to discussions about the Ukrainian conflict starts to tie people who are Russian into like, oh, so you're Russian, so you love Putin. Like that's not necessarily the case. A lot of Russians are not exactly thrilled with what's going on. Arguably, the majority of Russians are not thrilled with their leader, okay? So, at the outset, I'm already worried when I hear you demonizing Russians. Full stop. You know, I don't love that. In my opinion. I get worried when you start to dismiss whole groups of people and demonize them based on their nationality exclusively, you know. I don't love that. Yeah, and they're based in Cyprus and not Russia. That's true. What you'll start to hear, and my understanding, like I mentioned at the top of the stream, my understanding is that there's sort of a conspiracy theory tied into this where they're saying that members of the executive team within Montfish are actually tied into the Russian government or something. So there's things like that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know.
The story of the company begins with its launch in 2017 by a team of 4 like-minded gaming enthusiasts in Cyprus. At the same time, the studio was mentioned as a Russian one with an office in Moscow in Russian gaming and IT media articles. In 2019, there was even a report from the Moscow office of the studio. And after the events of 2022, the company completely ostracized itself from being known as a strictly Russian company and is now presenting itself as international.
Okay, cool. I don't blame them. You know, like I would too. But yeah, I totally understand why they would want to distance themselves from the Russian government after 2022. Can't say I'm shocked.
which in terms of their history of office installments and offshores means half Cyprus, half Armenian, half Singapore, and whatever the hell else, just to avoid sanctions and negative spotlight. So, now that we've established that this is actually a Russian studio, what is their opinion on the war going?
What? Okay, hold on. I know this might be like shocking, but like this is what happens when you start with a conclusion and then you build your argument around it. He's starting from the conclusion that this is a Russian game, and it seems like he's not willing to consider any other explanations of the things that he's coming across. So yeah, they describe themselves as having a Moscow studio. Once the events of 2022 took place, they quickly pivoted and opened offices elsewhere in the world and tried to diversify internationally and separate out. So what's more likely, that it's like a psyop from the Russian government and Putin's actually like, hold on, you guys need to make sure that you are spread out internationally so that we can make the money? Is he doing that? Or maybe do the devs honestly not support what like Putin's been doing and they want to get out of there and they don't want their game associated with it and they're just moving on? Like he's just casually like, okay, so now that we've confirmed that this is actually like a pretty big conspiracy, like what?
Going on? What could be their stance on this tragic matter that could save and keep their public image and also not tank the sales? Let's read out loud together. Guys, we have noted the questions surrounding where we at Montfish stand. We want to assure you that Montfish is a developer and studio with a global team focused on an innovative game and is undeniably a pro-peace organization against violence against people. We do not comment on politics or religion. Rest assured, we're a global team focused... Hold on, stop. We do not comment on politics? You're making a game that's sole idea is USSR renewal and communism. You classified your game as inspired by Bioshock and Prey, yet you go the no politics in my video game route?
No, they're saying as a studio they don't comment on modern, like, current political issues. You realize the USSR collapsed in the 90s, right? Or I guess 80s? Yeah, well, whenever it was. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down your wall. Like, if I make a video game about, like, World War II, am I being political? I guess by some definitions you could say so, but I don't think I would say you're being political because it's kind of past that. Like politics, well, let's see. Governance of the state, activities within an organization that are aimed at improving someone's status or position and are typically considered to be devious or divisive. That's how I would probably say that most people are using it in this case. They're not necessarily saying it's just related to governmental bodies, but it's specifically related to activities within organizations that are considered to be devious or divisive. For them, like, once you get outside and it becomes a matter of history, I don't consider it to be a political issue. If people are trying to, like, rewrite history for political reasons so that they can, like, hey, we don't want to talk about, let's say, our political party doesn't want to discuss our party's history with the slave trade. Like we used to, our party back 200 years ago was the party of slavery and now it's not, but we just don't want to talk about that. We want to erase it clearly for political issues because it'll help them get ahead in their position, within this organization of the government and blah, blah, blah. But just as a matter, like the discussion of that political party's tie to slavery, that isn't political. That's a matter of history and settled fact. How it's being used and twisted is a political issue. So I don't think making your game like heavily inspired by the Soviet Union is a political thing at this point. Maybe you could say that, but I don't think that that's necessarily political. And I don't blame them for not wanting to talk politics. And they also said they're pro-peace. Everybody on Earth knows that if you're asking them with regards to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, are you pro-peace or against peace? Everybody knows what that means. If you're against peace, you're siding with Russia. If you're pro-peace, you're siding with Ukraine. Everybody understands that that's how it's distinguished. And so they're towing the line and saying it as clearly as they reasonably can, I'm sure according to their lawyers, by saying we're a pro-peace organization. So I don't know.
This is one step away from the types of gamers who say, I don't like politics in my video game, and then immediately open up Fallout. What absolute nonsense! After that, their response to criticism regarding that tweet was simply to ban people, so it's a short end there. Now, let's look at the CEO of Montfish, whose name is Robert Bagratuni. Except that it isn't. His actual name is Maxim Zatsepin. Max previously had a position of a creative director / top manager in Mail.ru, which is now presented as VK, the biggest social media platform in Russia. It doesn't take much to figure out that a platform that is based in Russia, directed and controlled by Russia, and is used only by Russians will have a strict pro-Russian stance. But it doesn't end there.
Well, yeah, because they have to. Like, they have to.
Meet Yevgenia Sidova as the founder of Montfish. She's a former model and an owner of a modeling agency.
God forbid.
She worked at New Media Stars, where she was in charge of the computer graphics department. That company is now in charge of various pro-Russian mass media, such as Vzglyad.ru and Dni.ru. According to the former employees of the company, all Montfish transactions and checks are on her behalf. Let's roll back the time a little bit.
Oh man, this is starting to get very like, again, it's very McCarthyite. It's these people are Russian, therefore this thing is bad. And I just don't see, like, again, if they were coming out and they were saying we do support Putin, we support that, then I think you have a compelling argument. Like, do you want to support pro-Russian or pro-Putin individuals? Then, you know, you can conclude from that what you want. But to just say that people are Russian, therefore it's bad, like this starts to get pretty toxic pretty quickly.
The game has been in development for quite a while, and by quite a while I mean at least 7 years, with its earliest trailers dating back to 2017. And the scene in 2017 and 2018 wasn't as smooth for them. Many people got interested and excited, but a lot of people were skeptical, the reason being a shady system of pre-orders. Let me paint you a picture. An unknown company posts a small teaser trailer of some generic assets and a description to cause hype, with all of the effort to guide you to their pre-order page, where you would be met with a $60 base game, $90.
To be clear, that description was asking people to wishlist it. Wishlisting is not pre-ordering. Like, am I the only one that's confused? If they offered a pre-order, okay. But they were specifically asking to wishlist, which is free to do. It just adds it to a list where you say, I wish for this game in the future. And you'll get special notifications and emails when it goes on sale, when it has updates and things like that. So I'm a little confused as to how they posted a link to their Steam page and asked you to wishlist. Therefore, they're trying to get to scam you to pre-order? I don't...
$80 pre-order for Gold Edition and $100 for Premium Edition. Mind you, you see these price tags, and there's exactly 2 minutes of badly made teaser trailer footage with no gameplay to serve as the video game's representation and marketing.
My brain hurts so bad. This is... Okay. So is your problem with just pre-orders and offering pre-orders on trailers? Because, like, I can understand that. I have a problem with, like, Ubisoft selling collector's editions without gameplay footage for Mirage. I agree. Yeah, I don't like that. But he's throwing in, like, it's crappy gameplay and they're trying to sell you a pre-order. Ultimately, it's up to the individual agents. Like, if the customer wants to pre-order the game, I can think it's not the best move to pre-order AC Mirage right now. Like, you can still pre-order. There's a lot of time before the game. If you want to pre-order, you can do it once we've seen gameplay, and that will still be before the game comes out. So just wait. But if he's saying that, you know, the gameplay's bad and he's trying to, like, tear down the rest of it, it's like, apparently not. Like, people were starting to get really interested in this game from the moment it was announced because it looked really good.
What did not help was the fact that the game was being developed by a studio that no one has ever heard from before, being just born and publishing Atomic Heart as their first game, which means that they have no background and no past games that would justify the pre-order prices.
You just said the same thing 3 times in a row. That's fine. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. If a company is new and doesn't have a confirmed history, you should be more skeptical. Absolutely. That should tell you how impressive the gameplay reveals have been, that people are willing to be so excited over this game. And they've never released anything. Look at the company Fantastic that's doing The Day Before. They've released games before, and they still have like overwhelmingly negative perceptions within the gaming community. And it's because they've done a really bad job showing off their stuff, like a really, really bad job. And so it should show you like, okay, the game is actually pretty compelling. If that's such a negative counter, if that weighs it down, that's an albatross around their neck while they're trying to sell their game, and it still has this level of hype and interest, that should tell you a lot about the quality of what they're showing off. But he's trying to like also, they're trying to walk this line of like bashing the game and saying it's bad and it looks cheap and lazily thrown together, and then also mentioning these other aspects of it. It's like, well, it's not adding up. You're not adding the info. Like I'd be much more inclined to think that he was being intellectually honest if he were stating things clearly and accurately. Like you can say a lot about Atomic Heart. I don't think you can say that the gameplay has looked terrible, because clearly it hasn't. And if you're going to pretend like the gameplay that he's showing looks bad, I just don't believe that you're actually trying to discuss this honestly.
However, the breaking point for many people was that the game didn't even have a release date, or even a release year at the time, which meant that you're investing up to $100 for something that might not come out ever, practically losing your money.
I mean, but the game is coming out, so not a scam. Because it comes out in like 5 days. So like, is his problem just with freaking pre-orders? Okay, I agree. But if you have a problem with that, what is this specifically about Atomic Heart? Like, this has nothing to do with Atomic Heart. Your problem is just with pre-order. Like, your problem is with gaming as an industry. Your problem isn't with these guys. What?
You know what else is $60 for the same price as the base game?
Dead ass. No, okay. Well, similar. Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Doubts started to rise as many...
Yeah, okay. He's like, you know what else is $60? Another game. Good job, dude. You figured it out. What the hell is that supposed to tell us? Like, they're selling this game for this amount, and there's another good game for that amount. Need I say more?
Many people called this out to be a fake footage from a video game that doesn't exist, made by a shadow company with no...
I don't think you can say called them out for this when it's clear the game is real. Like, they've given IGN access to the game extensively. And you're saying they've been called out. But saying you've been called out implies heavily that what you've been called out for is true and is accurate. Luke was called out for being a salty boy. It implies that I am, in fact, a salty boy, which, of course, I am. But if you're going to be like, Luke was called out for secretly being a horse dressed in a man's body. Like, no, that's not really what called out means. And, like, they were called out for being a fake game. It's like, well, okay, so some people said that the game was fake, but it's real. So, like, what?
records just to scam people out of their pre-order money. And it's been like that for a long time until they dropped more trailers and promo material and so on and so forth.
Yeah, okay, so a bunch of, like, cynical and psychotic mongrels thought this was a scam, which, you know, they were very, very skeptical. I get it. I don't think you can jump to everything's a scam until there's adequate evidence to believe that as well. You know, at this point, like the day before, I think there's a lot of evidence that the day before is not a real game. I think there's a lot of evidence they're throwing this thing together in real time to make trailers, buying themselves time until they can figure out what they're going to do next. I think there's justification for that position now. But 6 months ago, I don't think there was evidence for that position. I think, yeah, it was a weird game. I wouldn't pre-order it, but yeah, it was weird. But like to see this gameplay as they start releasing trailers and stuff to still take the position that it's a scam just doesn't make any sense. And now like he's releasing this video like a week ago or something. Yeah, 8 days ago. 8 days ago, he's making this video when like the game is real. There is no question that the game is real, but he's trying to imply that the game is secretly fake and all this, or people thought it was, so therefore it's bad. I don't get it. I don't.
But the initial impression fell flat. Now let's talk economics. If you were to buy one and spend $60, where would the
Okay, so part 3 was a total waste of time.
$60 go? That is a really good question. To answer it, let's look at what kind of companies signed up to be the investors and publishers for Atomic Heart, basically to be the ones who would be taking the large cut in Atomic Heart's revenue. The investors of the studio are Chinese Tencent and Russian GEM Capital and Gaijin Entertainment. Tencent needs no introduction, being infamous with its licensing technique and hunger over users' data. So let's start with Gaijin Entertainment, which moved from Russia to Hungary in 2022 in order to avoid conflict and continue its activities. The head of the PR, Konstantin Hovorun, illegally visited the Ukrainian Crimea, which is temporarily occupied by Russia, and repeatedly spoke in support of the policies and politics of the Russian Federation. But the most interesting sponsor is GEM Capital. GEM Capital is a Russian fund founded by Anatoly Pali, who previously worked at Gazprom's subsidiary Gazenergoset. The studio raised investments from them in 2021, where Anatoly met and became friends with oligarchs who got rich on oil and gas activities and now have the opportunity to invest large sums of money in various projects. Namely, the export of gas and oil is one of the main categories of income of the Russian budget.
Yeah. Okay, so there's people that have invested indirectly in funds that also those funds have invested in this studio that is making this game. And those people 2 or 3 times removed have like upsetting political and ethical opinions related to the conflict in Ukraine. Okay. I mean, I get it. I understand. But it's hard not to be like, cool story, bro. Like, okay. Like when I was working in real estate, I sold buildings to like, I won't say his name, but there was a guy in Brazil. I've told this story before. A guy in Brazil that we were selling deals with, to. And he was like, we're pretty sure a like drug kingpin. Like, he would pay all cash for these $10-15 million deals. He had to do everything through trusts, like 5 layers of trusts tied to international trusts and companies and everything. So he would be like 15 steps removed from the building he's buying in like downtown Denver, apartment building. And he would, you would talk to him on the phone and he'd be like, look, how are you? And then he would be like, you need anything, you let me know. Anything at all. I was like, okay, cool. And then we say, are you going to come to Denver for the signing of the paperwork and to close this building out? He's like, no, I do not want to come to America. Cannot trust the federales. It's like, oh, that's weird. And then like they keep going and going, and he had handlers. Like he had 3 people you had to talk to on the phone regularly to get to him. Like, and then he also would make casual comments about not wanting to tell you where his money was coming from. Like, it was really sketchy. And he would make offhanded jokes that were like, they didn't seem like jokes about making the competition disappear and stuff like that. Like, but is like, is our whole company, if you sell a building through that company that I worked for, are you then like helping out a drug kingpin? Well, no, like business gets dirty and there's conflicting interests and everything. Like if you start to try to live your life in a way where you never cross paths with reprehensible people, you're just not going to live your life. Like you're just not going to live your life. Nothing's going to happen. Because guess what? Everything you touch is going to be touched by somebody else who sucks. Like it just is where it gets. It will get there eventually. Yeah, it was me the whole time. I'm that guy. I'm the Brazilian drug kingpin. It's just, I understand the connection he's making. Yeah, investors that will probably stand to benefit from this game doing well. They have ties to the Russian government and are Russians themselves. I get it. I just don't know how, like, viable it is to live your life consistently with the standard that you're never going to engage with content or products that can reward morally or ethically reprehensible people. Luke Goodman. People have said I have the same voice as the guy that does that plays Saul Goodman, and I don't know. To me, my voice is my voice, but I have heard that before.
The money from which goes to the military industry. And if you know basic economics and finances, you know that all investments must be returned, including interest. Moreover, a Twitter
That's a hot take.
user found Pelly's connection to other Russian state institutions, such as the sanctioned, systematically important bank VTB. The game attracted as many as 4 publishers: Xbox, 4Divinity, Focus Entertainment, and VK Play. Let's focus on VK Play. It is known to be a gaming division of the former Mail.ru, the same Mail.ru who had Maxim Zatsepin as their former top manager. And again, it is closely connected with the Russian government and participates in many initiatives of the Kremlin. If Atomic Heart is being developed with money that originated from sanctioned Russian businesses such as VK and Mail.ru, and banks which are systematically important to Russian government such as VTB, profits from the game could be directed to help the Russian government in its invasion, thus by buying Atomic.
That word "could" is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. It's a lot of heavy lifting on one word. Saul, I don't blame you, my friend. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for dropping by. I'm trying to be fair, right? Like, if this guy's saying that buying Atomic Heart is a major ethical lapse, and if it is, I don't want to do that. I would like to be correct in this. And if it is the case that buying this game is like straight up paying for mass graves, then yeah, I don't want to buy it. But this has been shared with me as like the breakdown on this issue. And so far, I find it extremely wanting. It leans into the most toxic elements of McCarthyism, which if you're not familiar, I've used that word a few times, but basically like, it's the concept that we ran into back in the US during the Red Scare, where if you had any ties to, Russians or communists near your family, you could lose your job. It's one of the things that people have said is tied up in like cancel culture in the States, where if you have like your Twitter account and then on your Twitter account you follow Jordan Peterson, that means you're actually just like Jordan Peterson. We're going to cancel you and tear you apart. Oh, you follow Donald Trump on on Twitter, then we're going to cancel you too. Like, it's the idea that basically in its bare bones form, if you have an association with this thing or group or person that we don't like, you're just like them. And that's what this guy's doing, where he's like, and this is tied to a Russian bank or a Russian investor. Therefore, the money could go to funding the war effort. And I'm like, I don't, like, that's the question. That's the thing you need to convince me on. And he just blew past it. Like, pretty effortlessly. Could. Profits from the game could
be directed to help
the Russian efforts. That could is the operative word. Like, that's what needs to be demonstrated here. And yet he's still, like, he's still just casually blowing past it and expecting you to just take it as a fact. I don't know. You're right. Let's try to help ourselves. 1.5.
Government in its invasion. Thus, by buying Atomic Heart, you would pay money to companies that support the aggressive policies and military actions of the Russian Federation. Lastly, there were some incredible terms of service and privacy policies spotted over at Mundfish. The website now leads to a 404, but someone managed to capture these screenshots. Basically, it says that your information can and will be transferred to the Russian government, in particularly the Federal Security Service, and not just your username, but your full name, physical address, email, phone number, IP address, and so on. Gotta say, their mobilization methods are getting...
I want to see if he says what he needs to say with regards to this. He might not mention it.
kind of dire. Finally, let's talk about...
Nope, sure didn't. They came out and said, yeah, no, that terms of service is extremely outdated. We haven't updated that in years and years and years. And we need to fix it because it's still the terms of service from when we were based in Moscow when we first formed. So yeah, it's going to say that stuff. And then they updated it and now it doesn't have that stuff. So... of course, he doesn't mention that. He just leaves it there, like, secretly they're sending all of your user data to the Russian government. When it's a lie through omission, intentionally not sharing a piece of information that changes the consideration, but he's not mentioning it because it hurts his argument.
Luke Sands donated $5 through Super Chat. I am calling you out, Luke. You are an AI created to make great content and take all of our money and love.
You got me. You got me. And then my face peels apart. The channel shuts down. It's like, yeah, we've come full circle. The arc is completed. Oh God.
About the game itself for
The
a bit.
theme.
Set in the USSR in 1955, Atomic Heart's story begins as the Soviet scientist Dmitry Sechenov creates an AI-assisted legion of robots that take control of all manual labor, leaving humans free to live a life of leisure and luxury. The main protagonist is a mentally unstable officer on special assignments, nicknamed P3, who is sent by this Professor Sechenov to keep the situation at Facility 3826 from...
Oh, Brian, you'd make a killer debater? I would like to think I'd make a master debater. Like a masturbator, but that's just me.
deteriorating. The game is set in a utopian universe where the USSR had won and had a major boost in technical progress. The gameplay is centered around fighting through hordes of various types of enemies, ranging from playing robots to cosmic horror type obscurities. The game is filled to the brim with USSR-themed keepsakes and memorabilia, from drinking condensed milk straight out of the can to actual flags and symbols of the USSR, hammer and sickle. This kind of approach to the showcase of USSR and communism walks a thin line between using it for world building and praising it, and there are
And praise it. It's a dystopia, dude. Like, what? This is like a game where they're showing all of it going to hell. Like, this is not portrayed as like a happy-go-lucky thing. It was an attempted utopia that turned into a dystopia. And he's like, and it borders the line of complimenting and praising it. I don't think so, dude. Like, you know, in Bioshock Infinite, Columbia. Initially, it's beautiful. And then you see how freaking horrible it is. This is like saying, in Columbia, there are scenes of overt racism in the game. And it toes the line between praising this racism and criticizing it. It's like, no, it's pretty clear. It's a bad thing. Like, what? You can make a lot of points about Atomic Heart. This video has tried to make them for 12 minutes now. I don't think you can argue that their portrayal of Soviet theming and governmental approach is portrayed in a good way. I mean, pretty clear to me, it seems like it's being portrayed as like a pretty horrible thing, a toxic thing that robs humans of their agency, and it's not a good thing.
Any solid reasons to believe that this line has been crossed completely right into promoting and idealizing the USSR regime and using it as a tool of USSR and Russian military propaganda. And there have been events to prove this. Take a look at this event that people behind VK organized. It was a special showcase of Atomic Heart for the Russian press, which was stylized in the game's Soviet aesthetics, and they did not go stingy on the decorations, huh? The event included a dinner in a large banquet hall where you could see Soviet-style slogans, like "Glory to the Soviet engineers" or "Comrade, join the society of the future." One of the users...
Okay, it's like if you went to a party celebrating like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then they have a bunch of like Viking decorations in the room. Yeah, it's theming. Like, what? Thank you for the $2, Luke. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. I think my opinion is that I think he does know what he's talking about, which is why this is all the more kind of gross to me, because he's intentionally leaving pieces of this out when it's inconvenient and hurts his argument. Like I said, with the terms of service or the pre-order thing, trying to say that they were trying to scam people out of pre-orders. When that wasn't, like, it's not the case. The game is real and the game's releasing. That's what he has a problem with. But he spent like 4 minutes of this video going through how people were worried it was going to be a scam. But it wasn't. So what? Like, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, which is why this is so extremely intellectually dishonest. Listen, I am full on, like I said, I don't try to get into like political discussions or anything here, but I'm pro peace fully. I think that it's pretty clear that Putin was getting like itchy feet, and he wanted to do something and make some moves. So he made the move on Ukraine, and I think it's horrible and disgusting. And I think a lot of people have died needlessly over one man's ego. I think that that's pretty clear, but I'm not going to just go along with a kind of dishonest takedown of something like this because we agree on that element of it. Like he has a standard of evidence that he has to deliver here, and it's just not being met. Pro peace for Hulu, for everybody. Like, I don't want people killing each other on either side. Let's just stop shooting each other. Let's do that. Like, everybody, let's just chill. Can we do that, please? Yeah, he's talking about Atomic Hearts like it's the day before. Yeah, Luke, thanks for the 5. Brain hurt badly. Brain hurty. Yeah, it's exactly like, yeah, a war
Luke
bad.
Babook donated $5
That's where
for
I'm at.
super chat. Brain hurty.
Brain hurty. And I agree. It's baffling. It's like, he's trying to suggest that the whole thing's a scam and super sketchy, but he's making this video a week ago. If he made this video a year ago, I'd be more inclined to believe it. But he knows that the game is real. He knows that this is not accurate, and he's still left it in the video because he's trying to, again, attack this made-up version of the game that's actually a scam, while also at the same time saying the game is real, which is why he's got a problem with it. So he's trying to play both sides of it. The game's a scam and not real, and the game is also real, which is why you shouldn't buy it. That's called cognitive dissonance, when you believe two opposing things at the same time. And it's also a remnant and a staple of dishonest argumentation. War bad. Yes, Vermin Supreme. Vermin Supreme. I didn't even read that before. Vermin Supreme, dude. I've watched those Vermin Supreme videos for so long. I love Vermin Supreme. Vermin Supreme for president, for real.
In Twitter reply said, imagine if developers of Wolfenstein had a
Vermin
Nazi-themed party, and I would say that's well said. Sergei Mohov, a Remedy lead gameplay designer, rightfully accused Monfish of being nostalgic about the Soviet regime, or even glorifying it. Ironically, the party's date coincided with the adoption of the new anti-LGBT law in Russia, which brings us right back to USSR, I guess. A major point that I want to bring attention to, that there have been numerous well-made games with a Soviet or USSR or low-lie Eastern Europe theme or setting. Let's bring some examples. In Singularity, the Soviet Union discovered a source of Element 99 and has special powers that could warp time itself, trying to bring it to the glory days through time travel. If you're in the mood for video games that came out 15 years ago, but already played through all the world-famous ones, you should give it a try. In Half-Life 2, the setting of City 17 has not been directly set to be in a specific part of the world, but it's clear that it's been influenced by Eastern Europe's architecture and style. Bulgarian art director Viktor Antonov, the person behind City 17 and Gunvolt of Dishonored, mentions his childhood hometown of Sofia as main inspiration for City 17. Other places like Belgrade were also used as reference. In Disco Elysium, the streets of Martinez show what it would be like to live through the failure of an attempted communist revolution. You can still see artillery damage and bullet holes in the walls, notes the lead writer Helen Hinpere. There's this feeling of being stuck in the past. People of Soviet and post-Soviet era are very familiar with this feeling, especially those who live in countries like Moldova or Estonia, which is the homeland of the game's lead designer, Robert Kurvitz. The game takes its own spin of what being a communist entails through its own political vision quest and partially the main quest. I won't spoil it, and I do suggest you try it out yourself.
Coming back to Atomic Heart, another point that rubs me the wrong way is the recent marketing strategy. It seems like their marketing team realized that their previous shady strategy has failed to bring in pre-orders, so they went with another plan to make typical capital G gamers buy their game, which is of course none other than through sexualization and objectification of women. So far I have avoided showing these characters on screen, but I am talking about the couple of female USSR-styled robots that they suddenly added in recent trailers and thumbnails to get the attention of the lusty neckbeards. Just by searching Atomic Heart on YouTube and scrolling far down, it's impossible to miss the countless trailers, thumbnails, edits, and shorts about these characters, with some videos claiming that they'll buy the game just for these two, which also brings in the ongoing issue of sexualizing lesbians in media. Not only is marketing like this highly unethical and immoral,
Oh, we did it, boys! We did it! We made it! I love how I'm surrounded by the robotic lesbians. I'm in the dead center, dude. That's freaking hilarious. Wow. He's making a point about sexualization of robot lesbians. And I'm literally in the center of the carousel of pictures proving his point. Oh, God. Oh, man. Oh, wow. I did not see that coming. Wow. That's pretty great. That's pretty good. I should have been wearing the outfit, too. Wow.
as we've been fighting with objectifying and sexualizing women, especially in media and advertisements, especially lesbians, but it's also actually illegal. For example, in Ukraine, our parliament adopted a law banning sexism in advertising, which became active in January 2022. Elected officials have banned showing the superiority of one gender over another in physical, intellectual, or social aspect, showing stereotypical roles of men and women, gender-based violence, as well as the human body as a sexual object. In simpler terms, it's just gross and cheap.
So, wait, the Ukrainian law made it illegal to show humans in stereotypically male or female roles? Is that what he said? Or sexual-based roles? So, like, your ad couldn't have some stereotype, like, you couldn't have the guy, the man of the house, coming home from work to a wife who's a stay-at-home mom. You couldn't do that? That's illegal now? That's odd. Let's see, Luke, we have a good short TikTok now. Yeah, nah, for real. Jacob, if you're still in here, let's clip that and turn that into a TikTok. I think that's pretty funny. Let's do that. Mauer, how dare he sexualize our Luke? Yeah, that's your job, guys. That's your job. Catch up on it. Riumbo, thank you for re-upping your membership. Luke Skeptical Stevens, when can we get a 16 times and red flag stickers for being a member? And keep up the good work, you beautiful human. That's a great idea. I would love to do that. I would love to do that. I have a bunch of other little stickers and stuff that we've printed in years past. But what I'll do, you know what? I'll do that after the stream. I'll place an order for a bunch of 16 times the detail stickers and red flag stickers. And I'll post something on like the community tab for members where you can submit your info, and then I'll send one off to you. That sounds super fun. I think that could be super fun. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea.
And what pains me to say is that it seems to be working. These YouTube shorts and edits are getting millions of views, quickly becoming favorite among the fans, who quickly started to spread rumors about a possible 6-hour sex scene in the video game. It's so wrong on so many levels.
I mean, it's a little funny, too. Like, they're literally robots. Like, robotic, smooth-headed, like... It's a little funny that this is what's
quickly becoming favorite among the fans, who quickly started to spread rumors.
Like, you can say it's gross, but it's also really funny that neckbeards are so predictable that this will sell the game to them. Like, come on. Come on. I'm guessing this guy hated The Witcher 3. Probably, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be so uptight that you can't even be like, yeah, they're trying to appeal to neckbeards, so they put some robot like women in the game. Like, it's not real women, they're robots. They're literally robots, like without faces. And you're gonna be like, okay, I just interesting how he doesn't mention how Wolfenstein completely ruins his first, fifth, and sixth points. It's the exact same idea as Atomic Heart, except with World War II Germany. Yeah, and I wonder if he'd be calling for a boycott of that. Maybe if he's consistent, I'd be like, props, dude, you're being consistent. But like, he's trying to use pre-orders as a point of why you shouldn't buy this game. Which, okay, you're not going to be buying any game, full stop, if you don't like pre-orders. He's trying to say sexualization of I guess, the female form, because they're robots, so not even women. Which, like, okay, if you don't want to buy games based on that, okay, props to you, I suppose. But also, like, you're not going to be engaging with with a lot of games, you know, a lot of some pretty amazing games. But I don't know, we're almost done. We're close.
It's about a possible 6-hour sex scene in the video game. It's so wrong on so many levels. In conclusion, what can you do to support Ukraine on this matter? If you did purchase a pre-order of Atomic Heart, the first and the best step would be to cancel it, request a refund, and send that exact amount of money to Ukrainian charities. The second part is admirable, but not necessary. Simply canceling the pre-order is fine, and let's be honest, in this day and age, you shouldn't be buying pre-orders anyway. If you want to go a step further, you can do the following. You can go to the games shop page, click on the complaint flag, select the item breach of the law, contains materials that violate the laws of your country, and write a similar text or something on that matter. In case you didn't know, you
the communist and national socialist Nazi regimes and prohibition of propaganda of their symbols. Okay. I mean, he's got to be careful with this. He's calling for mass flagging, which he can get sued for. So I would be very careful if he's doing this. This might be a big oopsie. Because like they'll straight up ruin your life if you try to do this to some big studios. If you tried to ask, like if I posted a video that did 1.7 million views on like GTA 6 or something, and I called for people to flag it with maybe a potentially valid complaint, but I'm calling people to go and do it, like you could get in some real trouble. And like I said, I think most people are going to be like, screw you for telling me what to do, and they're gonna go off and do the opposite. So this probably is the best thing that could have happened for Atomic Heart sales, unfortunately, for him. Adrian, thanks for the 2. Luke, thanks for the stream. Work meeting time. Go kill it, my friend. You got this.
Ukraine has implemented a law that restricts and bans all Soviet and USSR propaganda, symbols, and memorabilia. We had quite enough of that. If you simply want to stand aside and be an innocent bystander, there is a way as well. When the game comes out on February 21st, simply play a different game. It's that easy. Don't wishlist Atomic Heart, don't buy it, and go play something like Disco Elysium instead. You should wishlist Stalker 2 though. Some users could make a claim that they could simply pirate it and pay no money to the Russian devs and still enjoy the game. To that I can't say anything. At that point it depends only on your moral compass. If you feel comfortable playing the game after watching this video till the end, I've done all in my power and I can't control your wallet, so I can't stop you from pirating this game. It's just up to your morals and ideals at this point. In the description I'll be sending the links to all of the articles used for this video. Whether to check it is up to you.
I don't know, man. I feel like you had a pretty strong burden of proof, and a pretty heavy burden of proof, and I don't personally feel like it was met. A lot of stuff, like the whole premise of this is that you could enrich the Russian government. Everything else is really secondary. Like, might be a scam. It's not, though. They had like events where they seemed like they had decorations that were themed around the Soviet Union. Yeah, but a lot of games have done that for their settings. So like, what it would be like if Wolfenstein did it for, with a Nazi party. Yeah, I agree. It's like that. The thing is that like Nazi propaganda and imagery is much more socially taboo internationally than Soviet imagery is. I think that they should both be very taboo. I would agree with you. The Soviet Union did a lot of damage to the world as well and to their people. Absolutely. But they're just perceived as different. So like, yeah, I agree. 2 wrongs don't make a right, but Like, is that why I shouldn't buy the game? Because they did a common marketing tactic of decorating in the theme of the game? That seems iffy. I don't know. Robots are sexualized? Yeah. They sexualize
and what pains me to
robots?
say is that it seems to be working as aspect too. When you as only as marketing media and advertisements, especially.
Like, okay. Whatever. Atomic Heart mommy. Jesus Christ, guys. But they're robots. Yeah. I mean, I just, the whole video for me is defined back here, wherever it was, where he says the money could go back and serve as a kickback to the Russian government. That could is all I was looking for this whole video. That's what I wanted to see, was whether or not the could was justified. If he could argue that, no, the money will go back to the Russian government in this way, this route. A state-funded, fund gave money to this game dev and the money will go back to them directly. Okay, then you've met that burden. But instead, he lands on it could and then blows past everything else. And that's, to me, just, I don't think that's good enough. Because most of this video just came down to, there are Russians involved with this game, therefore it's bad. And I just don't think, I don't want to get in that thought space, because that to me is just, it's McCarthyism, and it's toxic and it doesn't work well. Do I think that game will get review copies of future games? I don't think he's even really a YouTuber. Is he a YouTuber? I guess it's a lot of Destiny content. No, I mean, and like I said, I would be extremely nervous if I were him, based on that ending bit where he called people to mass flag the video. If you do that, you can actually get straight up sued. You cannot screw around with that stuff. I think that was an oopsie. He might not a threat, nothing. I just as somebody who's been involved in video creation for a while and doing things relatively publicly for a while, you don't screw with corporations that can afford good lawyers, especially when you're telling people not to buy their product and then you call for them to do something in an illegal way, which is mass flagging. That doesn't work. That does not work.